Oh my goodness, look at this crowd. There's like 200 plus people or so. We're packed. This is amazing. Thank you everybody for being here. Before we get started, just give a few overview details about this event. For those that don't know, we are doing a series of community roundtables. And so there was one a couple of months ago. We've got this one today with Philip, and there's several more coming up that we'll be announcing very shortly. So lots more to come. For today's session, we are going to be monitoring text chat. Please note, of course, that we're not going to be able to answer all questions at once. There's a lot that will be flowing quickly. We are trying to monitor it and keep up. We also recognize this format does have some limitations, so please be patient. We'll try to address as much as we can from the topics that come up, both from the chat in real time and also pre-submitted questions. We do ask everybody as a favor, please do keep your mic muted. Voice is obviously on, and we do expect we'll be taking questions from the audience in real time as well at designated times. So please keep it muted in the meantime. So earlier in this week, we did invite the community to submit their questions in advance. So we're going to start today with some of the pre-submitted questions. And again, we'll also try to address some of the ones that come in chat as well. So this is a roundtable format. We're here not just to respond, but to also listen and take in your real-time feedback in ways that we can improve and learn from your experiences in Second Life. Support questions should be directed to our support portal. We'll put that link in chat shortly. There's also a feedback portal. We'll provide that link as well. And we also want to remind people, lastly, that there are recurring user group meetups and worlds. And there's a wiki page that we'll share shortly where we direct you to if you want to meet with small, intimate meetings with some of the Lindens on each respective team. So again, one more reminder, please mute your mic. And now let's get started. Let's give a big virtual welcome to Second Life founder and now CTO, Philip Rosedale.
Thank you, Brett. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? The text is scrolling by quite quickly. Thank you very much for having me. I'm going to risk the render gods and respectfully turn as I say hello to everyone, though I may not bow. I want to see all your faces, and it's great to see everyone. I am, in full transparency, on, let's see, a MacBook Pro at about 15 frames per second right now as I turn in circles. Nice to see everyone. As Brett said, we're going to do this as best we can in this Four Corners open community format. I'm going to answer some of the questions that you submitted. There were about 100, and I'm going to answer, I think, 20 or so of them quickly, and then we'll shift over to conversation with everyone here. As Brett said, he's monitoring the chat. I'm going to do my best to read the chat while I'm speaking, although I will, not see all of it, and then we'll take some discussion at the end. At the high level, as Brett said, I am back full-time at the lab as our CTO and also as a board member. I couldn't be having more fun. There's obviously a lot of work to do, and I'm in the middle of it. I'm a little tired. It's been really since about the beginning of October that I've been heads down full-time, coming back and trying to do a lot of new and exciting things. We've had a few years of fantastic work done by Brad, coming in with the acquisition of Linden and making the company and the product better in a lot of different ways. We're much more efficient in how we're doing things. We have improved things like our ability to support people, lots and lots of different things about the company. And most importantly, we're very successful as a business. Again, meaning that we've got extra money to hire new people. We've got the ability to pursue new projects. And combined with the fact that technology is changing in such interesting ways right now, I was really excited when Brad and I started talking about the opportunity to bring me back full time. For those who may know me from some of my other work, we have had a lab here in San Francisco for the last couple of years. And that lab has spawned a few companies out of it. The lab's actually gone on as kind of a sub-project here, in the building at least, where Second Life is headquartered. And so some of the ideas we have around new work in AI is work that's already gone on, some of it here in our lab over the last couple of years. I'll touch on some of that later in answers to some of the questions, but I am delighted to be back. I really appreciate, I got a lot of warm messages so far, as you could imagine. I really appreciate them. Thank you to everybody who sent me welcome back messages on different channels. I really appreciate it. And I think, as Brett mentioned with this series, but more broadly, I hope this is the beginning of a deeper conversation with everyone, including everyone here, but also everyone in Second Life. I want to really learn from everyone, before we make big decisions about what we're doing. You may have seen me trying out different social media and other channels, things like Reddit, Discord. I got a Prim Feed account, and others. If there's a channel that you think I should be in, please let me know. You can also always send me comments at lindenlab.com. Philip@lindenlab.com is a way to reach me via email, and then I will be in and out of these other channels and trying to learn more from you in them, and also just figure out better ways to interact with everyone, to kind of self-govern Second Life, and kind of look at where latest technology has left us, being able to do that better. I also created a new group that I'd love to have everybody join if you want to follow along in these experiments in deeper communication. The group is called Friends of Philip, and you should be able to join it right now, so it'd be fun if you do so, and tell other people about it. So Friends of Philip is a group. Partially got some inspiration from the great work that Firestorm's been doing with support, using a large in-world group. So hats off to Firestorm in that regard, and I thought that maybe I could try creating a large group and doing some communication in that context, and more broadly, as I say, just finding out how to talk to everybody. So with that, let me answer a few of the questions that were sent beforehand, and then we'll take some more from everybody here. And I'm not going to name the people but if you're here and you've submitted that question, thank you very much, and feel free to add to that as we get into the second part of the conversation. The first question, and I tried to pick out the questions, there were about 100 submitted that I thought kind of hit some of the big topics that matter right now. So the first question is, Second Life has been stagnant in terms of technology for a while, and PBR and GLTF is a big step forward, and that's good and exciting. However, there's a fraction of the community that doesn't realize that PCs need to be upgraded more often than once every decade. Are there any plans to remind the less tech-savvy part of Second Life that this is the case? MMOs like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy raise their system requirements every few years as they keep releasing expansions. Second Life should do the same if we want to match graphical fidelity of competing platforms. So, people in Second Life so far, many people have stayed more than 10 years here. And I want to thank all of them and the many people here that I'm sure are among that group. We have people in Second Life who depend on it in the way that, most people might depend on something like their basic internet service or their cell phone. So I think we have to be more careful than, for example, an MMOG developer might be. The typical time that people stay in games is much, much shorter than Second Life. The life cycle of the typical game is nothing like the 20 years that many people have nearly been here in Second Life, or I think actually some people like myself literally. So kicking out a big portion of your population when a new generation of PCs comes out seems both ethically fraught and just a much higher impact for us than for a more typical game. So for everything we've been doing, we're trying to take that into consideration. And for example, in these last few releases in particular, where we've been trying to recover from the problems that we introduced earlier this year in the release of the various viewers around some new capabilities that culminated with Firestorm's June 20th release that caused us caused everyone a bunch of trouble that we're working on fixing right now. And in those last few releases, we've been doing everything we can actually to fix settings and find workarounds on older machines. So I think that while we certainly need to continue increasing the graphic fidelity of Second Life, we have to recognize who is here, who's using it, who we're of service to, and make sure that we don't cut off big swaths of the population, as we accidentally did a few months ago, and are very sorry for it. Next question. Second Life has an aging population. What are the plans to attract new residents to expand and liven up our communities? Platforms like VR Chat are quite a lot more technically advanced than Second Life, which might be one of the attractive points to younger generations. Puppetry, GLTF, Lua do seem like great tools to modernize Second Life. Is there anything else on the roadmap? So let me just say that I wonder who agrees with me here. The most mind-blowing thing about VR Chat is simply being able to see yourself embodied and moving as your avatar, to look in the mirror, as many people do in VR Chat, at yourself wearing your avatar, right? I know this is an experience that'll bring people to tears. I've seen it. You know, the challenge that we have in creating that future for ourselves is that VR headsets are growing way too slowly. It's something that affected Second Life and affects us here now. I'd love to be able to find a way to use Second Life in VR, but I don't think we have anywhere near the resources to write a VR viewer from scratch. So while we're thinking about what we do with VR in the more distant future, we are not working on it right now. Next question. Dear Philip Rosedale, welcome to the new position at Linden Lab. We all wish you good luck and are looking forward to seeing Second Life evolve and improve. My question is about the implementation of AI in Second Life. The new Welcome Hub Social Plaza has a bot named Janet the Welcome Greeter, but she didn't answer questions very well, if at all. Would a ChatGPT version of her not be easy to train based on existing FAQ, help pages, and be able to help answering questions about Second Life for both newcomers and more experienced users? How do you see implementation of AI in Second Life in general? Thank you. So AI in general, let's talk about it. You have noticed us doing a number of what I would call alpha tests with bots, as the one discussed there, with greeters, with trying to figure out ways to get dressed. And in fact, one of our companies here in the office, Current, has worked on some really interesting back-end deployments of technology that you may not have seen yet, like trying to do a better job triaging the reports that we get on Canny. That's an example of a pretty successful, I think, use of AI that can really materially help us. But the applications of AI in Second Life, we have to be very careful and thoughtful about, despite how many exciting things are going on in the broader kind of AI world. So as you see us doing these tests with bots of different kinds, understand that we're playing with things, but not saying that this is the right direction yet. I don't think we know what the right direction is for AI in virtual worlds. And in particular, when we use AI as actual characters in the world, as what we might call NPCs or bots or companions or any other words like that you may hear us using, we're doing these experiments with a couple of big rules in mind. One of the most important ones I want to reiterate here, and that I've said in other contexts outside of the Second Life work, is that AI has got to be used, as Second Life has been, as a way of bringing us closer together rather than a way of providing substitutes for each other. So, for example, an AI that helps you find new friends in Second Life might be a great thing, but an AI that provides a replacement for a relationship with someone else seems almost certainly not the thing we want to be doing. So I think our focus needs to continue to be indefinitely on doing what we've already done a pretty good job at, and a much better job than traditional social media, which is bringing people together, as we all know and have experienced. Next question. Given the massive success of platforms like Roblox, what are some of the ways Linden Lab is working to grow the user base amongst these types of users, and particularly younger people? So in general, we don't have and we don't want kids using Second Life. Let me just say that. We do allow 16-year-olds and up to use Second Life, but with restricted maturity settings on 16 to 18. And generally speaking, and to our knowledge, it seems like there are very few kids on the grid, and we like it that way. We're worried about risks of harm there on multiple levels. Financial exploitation, for example, of kids. Adults just not wanting kids there, and adults potentially being of harm to kids. So there's a lot of reasons why we have to be very, very careful in that regard. And it's why, as yet, we have not made attempts to make Second Life more appealing to younger people. We're very interested in your perspectives on that on an ongoing, and I'm sure you know that they're going to change as time goes by, but that's where we are right now. We're keeping it an experience for grown-ups. Next question. Welcome back. We missed you. Thank you. In terms of moving forward with AI and other shiny new things, what are your thoughts on the upgrade of the engine? We have been running the same engine for most of Second Life's life with PBR here. And now you want to bring AI and such. Are we not on borrowed time with the current engine? Well, a couple of thoughts about that. First of all, Second Life has a very complex user experience. Indeed, people actually need to help each other use Second Life, and so they need to be using a common and very complex UI to do that. And of course, the best and the most common UI for Second Life is Firestorm, actually. And thank you, Firestorm, for being that home for people as a user experience. But we have to plan for that reason, because of the complexity of that user experience. I think we have to plan on providing that user experience for a long time, if not indefinitely, and probably on the same engine. So I think we cannot as easily as other systems just change the engine underneath a set of UI complexity that is so remarkable, to say the least. I know you all know what I mean there. But at the same time, while planning to sustain this UX, I assume most folks here are using Firestorm, we are also evaluating whether we can or should build an entirely new viewer, the same way we did with mobile, that can make Second Life more accessible to people who either don't have the required PC or can't figure out the current UI. Next question. Many people are now increasingly coming to the fight against their virtual addiction to Second Life. They increasingly begin to realize that they're losing touch with the first reality and spend too much time in Second Life. How severe can the consequences be in this regard in the future? Now, that's a great question, right? Because we can clearly see that whether we're talking about social media or apps or games, there's tremendous danger of addiction. But most of the time, when we talk about addiction in software, we're talking about these exploitative dopamine loops that basically keep you drawn into a mechanism, into a game mechanism or into a behavioral mechanism. That's pretty different, though, than Second Life. In Second Life, I think the most addictive component is that you have friends there. I bet everybody here would agree with that. I know that I do. And as we all know from being in Second Life, those friendships are as real and meaningful as real life ones. Friends in Second Life are not like having followers on Twitter. They're quite close, as we all know, and in many ways can be better than having friends in the real world. So we have to consider that in many cases we're providing a genuine reduction in loneliness and access to friends. And that's, in my opinion at least, a very, very good thing for us to be doing in the world, to be doing right now, to be doing online in a way that almost nothing out there online has created, like we have. So I think we have to be careful, but I do agree that we have to be very careful not to cause harm along a lot of lines, and that is a good example of one of the places we have to be thoughtful. Next question. How do you solve, quote, the boob problem, end quote? You can't look at one page of the marketplace or visit in-world shops without seeing thumbnails of women in a state of undress. It makes attracting new users and new partnerships problematic. It's not about being a prude. It's about going to the office and not seeing pinups in every other cubicle. I think that's a great, maybe it's a little bit funny, but it's an important and meaningful question. The one that really breaks my heart is when we teleport and we show up naked for a few seconds. It just seems like a ridiculously unexclusive thing for us to be doing. How many people find it fundamentally unacceptable to show up naked after teleporting somewhere? I say this because this was my fault in the beginning. It was something that I just kind of thought was funny when we were getting started. And frankly, looking back on that, I can't believe I did that. I should have been immediately like, that's a P1 bug. Nobody can show up naked, and then have their clothes show up a few seconds later. So I think we have to take concerns like this very seriously, that in addition to teleporting and becoming naked, yeah, it's too easy for pretty much anyone to encounter content quickly in Second Life that might offend them. And fixing that, I agree, would make us more widely accessible. So we need to be thinking about how to do it and doing it. You shouldn't be exposed to content that deeply upsets you almost immediately on entering Second Life. And you should be able to come into Second Life from a wide variety of use cases and desired journeys and cultural backgrounds and everything. So we really need to think about that. So I just wanted to restate it. But we have to reduce what people easily run into while balancing letting people do what they want in the privacy of their own homes, etc., as we all know. So the balance of striking the balance here is difficult, but I also think it's doable. And so I think you'll see us move forward in that regard over time. And I hope that in these discussions we have and figure out the ways to have better discussions with people about this, we get a lot of good feedback. Next question. As a creator, is there anything we creators could do to assist you guys with your goals or visions for Second Life? So yeah, there's a lot, and I think we need to do a better job, again, in beginning conversations like these and getting your feedback on things. More broadly, though, I would simply ask that we all help onboard people. Many of us are already doing that. Do you realize that if amongst the really devoted users of Second Life, we all brought a new user in and helped them get started in Second Life once every 6 months, that Second Life would be growing again? It's kind of a crazy observation. So I think that we need to design, you need to help us, and we need to design the right systems to best enable everyone to do that. You know, Second Life, at least at this moment, requires help to use, as we all know. Probably the most help with dressing your avatar, right? But it requires one-on-one help, and everybody that joins Second Life and makes it knows that there's somebody that they really respect for having helped them get started, you know, other than just a good piece of software. So help us think through that, help us onboard more people, help us bring more people in, because ultimately for content creators, right, the only positive sum game is increasing the size of the size of the overall economy. We don't want to do a negative sum or a zero sum game where we're just shifting around, you know, revenues between people. We want to create a positive sum game, and that means bringing more people in. And I deeply believe, and I'll read a lovely piece on this later, but I deeply believe that we have got more people that would like to use Second Life right now in its current form, with the current community we have, with the people that are deeply devoted to being here. There are more of those people worldwide than we have actively using Second Life. It's not, you know, 500,000 people or so that are the sort of people who would love to be in Second Life. There's no way that's the only, you know, number of those people worldwide. Next question. Are there any plans to update Second Life's scripting language from LSL to modern languages like C# or Python, similar to what Sansar has done? Well, yes. Just use this opportunity to repeat that we're working on Lua / Luau, which is also used by Roblox, as a potential replacement or a potential initial addition to the scripting engine capabilities, so that content creation becomes more easy in that new language. So we'll see how that comes. That one is not ready yet, but it is work that's underway. Next question. Why doesn't Linden Lab allow payments by Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in Second Life? This would attract more investors. I think what this question means is, yeah, if you're purchasing Linden dollars or buying land, for example, why can't you do that with crypto? I do think it's a good point that as payment systems have matured, and not just crypto, but, you know, any number of new systems, you know, things like Zelle or whatever, there's a million different innovative new ways to take payments for things. And I think that we should grow by actively expanding all the ways in which people can pay us. Obviously, with Second Life, there are all the legal and regulatory complexities of doing that, because we are, allowing you to purchase Linden dollars in some cases with those forms of currency. But yes, we should be expanding paying for things with as many currencies as possible. And we do agree that crypto would be a good goal there. Although, as I think I'm seeing some people say, there are many negative things about crypto that I myself have written about lots and lots. If you care to read my stuff, you can find my Substack and Medium and things like that. I think there are real dangers to going all in on cryptocurrency, but simply accepting cryptocurrencies as a means of payment makes a ton of sense. Next question, why not use a communications budget with major YouTube influencers or others to promote Second Life, which is slowly fading away each day? Well, you're right. We need to get Second Life growing. It has gotten a tiny bit smaller in terms of metrics like concurrency over time, and we need to turn that around. As I said, again, if each of us were able to bring one person in every 6 months, we'd actually reverse that trend. So it shows how gentle the decline is and how quickly we could do that. And we are going to start marketing for growth again, and soon. So that's exciting. The company is, very well equipped to begin marketing again. We think there's lots of ways we can do that. But marketing for directly into channels like, say, YouTube, just broadly, where there's a ton of there's just a really kind of random set of people listening to the messaging, isn't effective with Second Life, because 95% or so of randomly chosen people still don't want to use virtual worlds like this. They don't, that is to say, they don't want to become avatars and go into a virtual world. As I've talked about before, and I'm wrapping together 2 question responses here, one of the reasons for that is simply that without facial expressions and body language, when you walk up to another avatar, there's still a kind of unusual experience to Second Life. I was thinking about it and thinking that I would describe it like, it's like going to a bar or a restaurant where there's all kinds of strangers you didn't know, and doing the whole experience completely in the dark, shutting the lights off in the bar, if you will, and then talking to everybody with your voice, but not your body language. And as you can imagine, especially with new people, that's a pretty uncomfortable thing for most people. And so for that reason, we can't yet, until we get that kind of nonverbal communication working better, I think, we can't just offer Second Life to everybody. That's what I thought in 2006, when I was the enthusiastic and excited and quite a bit younger founder of this company. We wanted to make it work for everybody. And I think the reason it doesn't yet work for everybody is largely because of that sense of that lack of nonverbal communication. So we can't yet just, hand out flyers for Second Life on the street corner in New York. But we can do lots of marketing, and we're going to think about how to do it. And if you have specific marketing ideas to more narrowly target the people who today would want to be using Second Life, please email them to me, send them to me. We are going to start marketing again, and it should be fun. Next one. We saw the post about suspension of Skrill as a credit service. Many of us have Skrill as the only option to process credit. So will there be any new alternative? We're hands-on on this problem. We're well aware of it, and we're not going to shut that service down until we've identified other options for you. So thanks for bringing that one up. We need to make sure there's adequate cash out options for everybody, and we won't shut Skrill down until we've identified and described what other options are. Next question, what's the future for the mainland? Will you finish off the 2 incomplete continents? I wanted to take that question just to say how much I love the mainland and how much in general I think there's a magic property of Second Life, which is that people are able to work together. I don't just see this in the mainland, by the way. I see it in many of the islands now, which are very large groups of islands in which there are wonderful communities that are together on those islands. So being able to build together with a community of other people where you work out, what your collective lives are together, I think is one of the really magical things about Second Life that no one else has captured yet. We're not, it hasn't happened. There's just not yet, other than Second Life, demonstrations of that kind of deep collective behavior in virtual worlds. And so I really have a big belief in this. And that also is one of these, obviously, do we prioritize things like region crossing and different forms of community governance, right? I think we should. I know region crossing is a specific hotspot that people have mentioned in many of our recent surveys. Yes, we've got to keep making that better. That was always the idea. I see people mentioning houseboats and sailing and boats. Absolutely, we got to make that work. And again, I think with respect to some of that governance and community building stuff, please join my new group, Friends of Philip, and we'll talk together about that in more detail there. How long before the mobile app becomes the only app? That was the question. I think never. Many people here are going to want to use Second Life on desktop forever, and that seems great. Indeed, I think the most deep and immersive uses of Second Life probably can't be translated completely to the mobile device. But at some point, our hope is that a new person could access Second Life entirely from mobile, but we don't think we're there yet. So right now, what we're trying to do with the mobile version is get to something where it's at least a little helpful to everyone to use the mobile version. And maybe a fun way to get started even, but that's kind of the order we're doing it. A little bit of utility for everybody first, then maybe a way for newer people to get started or do part of the experience, but then ultimately have desktop always available. As someone just said, tiny screens don't work. Yeah, the way I say it is, it's like the Black Mirror, right? Like having Second Life as an experience on the Black Mirror, that's very hard. So we need to take that. That said, I think that by doing a good job getting a mobile app that is out there in concert with desktop will allow us to grow. So this next one is moving, and I'll try to read it without having it make me cry because I thought it was so wonderful, and I think it speaks to a lot. So let me just read it. I started in Second Life in 2009 because a friend I knew in an online writers group had suffered a serious injury that put him in a coma, and when he woke up, he was confined to a wheelchair. He went from being an active, athletic person in real life to feeling like he was forced to watch the world go by through a window, wrestling with real depression. Another friend in the same group had been part of Second Life for several years already and suggested he come into SL as he might find meaningful things to do there. They asked me to join because I have a gift for understanding technology and being able to explain how things work to people who are less tech savvy. I threw myself into learning everything I could about how Second Life worked so I could be up to speed and answer his questions as he went along. He dove into several communities, one after another. I went along with him, learning as fast as I could. One of the things that started to become apparent to me is that many of the most dedicated and brilliant creators in Second Life were seniors or disabled in real life. Around 2012, one of the CEOs, I think this means after me, commissioned a study to find out more about the people who joined Second Life. I don't know where that study is now, but what I remembered was that the study revealed something like 19 out of 20 people who joined Second Life left within a year. We touched on this earlier, by the way. The Linden Lab leadership wanted to figure out how to make more people stay. The question I thought was being overlooked was, quote, who's the person who stays? In that 20, end quote. I love that. My own answer that I found out was that people who stayed were highly motivated to figure it out. Second Life at that time was not necessarily plug and play user friendly, but these people threw themselves into the world with tenacity. When I learned about who these people were in real life, they were again elderly, autistic, or physically handicapped in real life. In the real world, these people were put on the shelf, treated as if their lives were waning. In Second Life, they came back to themselves, much like music revives the catatonic mind. All this is to say, I think a big mistake the lab has made over the years is to treat Second Life as if it were a game and cater as a diversion for the young, when it really, really, really has a meaningful place for people who the real world tends to put on the shelf. This is too long. I've been carrying this for many years, but I really hope, and I may not be the person to implement it, but I hope someone does. Thank you. I'm glad you're back. More than anything to that, I just say, yes, truth. It feels like we need to understand better and better and better who the people here are and who we're serving, and make changes to Second Life, for example, to its accessibility, which I think is a huge opportunity for us. You know, we should make Second Life accessible to all of those people who are using it. You know, for example, I think that means things like captions and translation and sound and text changes so that people that are, for example, hearing impaired or visually impaired can use it, you know, transparently, basically. So I just wanted to read that one because I thought it really captured what I was trying to say earlier, which is Second Life's not for everybody, but it's amazing. And we just need to be thoughtful about that as we begin our marketing and understand what we're doing. Um, let's see. Another one, a last one here, and then we'll take some from everyone else. The question is, I hope Second Life can give the opportunity for banned accounts to be revived and given life again. The user was previously wronged of wrongdoing despite proving otherwise, but was consequently banned. Is there a chance that these banned accounts can be given reconsideration? My answer to that is simply to reflect on together how amazing Second Life is. You know, banning from an online community is a kind of last resort, and you know, obviously should only happen under the most desperate conditions, where there's just no way to have you know, someone participating in the community anymore. And again, I think over the years we've done a pretty good job of handling that process as best we can. But the very fact that it comes up over and over again, in one sense, reiterates the importance of virtual worlds, and again, why we're doing this in that text I just read. And I think in that spirit, we can certainly continue to recognize our the importance of Second Life to individuals, the seriousness of banning, and whether there are processes, you know, judicial processes, if you will, that can make that work better, or you know, provide alternatives in some cases to banning. So I just wanted to kind of state that question, not because I have a quick answer. I don't, and I think we're largely doing the best that we can right now. But to say that Second Life is a precious thing, and we've got to focus on those people who hold it as precious and live here, and continue to design it to support their needs, even the needs of governance where appropriate. You know, when someone has to leave Second Life, they should have to leave in broad agreement, you know, with the community that they had to leave. So I think we can continue to do things to do better in that regard. But I do see many notes like that, so I just wanted to read that one. So thanks. That wasn't all the questions, and let's shift now maybe to some conversation. Again, I hope that, again, I'm back. I hope that this can be the beginning of a variety of conversations in different formats. You know, this is one with a large number of people, so it's largely, I guess you call it didactic. You know, I'm standing up here just talking at everybody, and we need to do other engagements with the community that have different experimental characters to them, and I intend to do that. And for those who know me, you probably know that I have a lot of fun experimenting with different processes for communication. So, Brett, why don't I turn it back to you and maybe ask you to lead us in some interaction here.
Great. Thank you, Philip. So what I'm going to start with, I've been monitoring the text chat, and I will repeat the question. And if that person here wants to elaborate on voice, they're welcome to do so, or text, but I'll go ahead and start. And again, hopefully I'll get as many of these as we can. One resident asks, Philip has land in Waterhead. Will you take it back and fix it? And the old Linden Lab headquarters.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a good one. You got a good surprise for me there, Brett. I don't know. I will take this as an incentive to go and explore my land in Waterhead, but obviously that's one of the old servers. I guess I would take this time to say I often hang out in Ahern, where I believe that's where the little man statue in the ivory tower of primitives, and many of whenever I go there, I run into some of the oldest residents of Second Life, and so it's always a pleasure to do that. But yes, I will. I'll take that as a good question to figure out what to do if we should be bringing land back, as you say. And I love the mainland, like I said before.
Okay, we've got another question, actually similar to that, I guess. How important is digital history, like the area around the old Linden Lab headquarters? Again, I think this is the same person, Philip, part two. Shall it be left broken, or is it a good idea to restore old region and builds? Clearly some interest in the digital origins and history of Second Life.
Yeah, well, when we started, of course, for those who remember, you know, especially back in like 2006, like we literally had an amount of data on the main grid that was kind of inconceivable. I mean, we at that time were one of the largest, you know, exchanges of data traveling across the internet, and also just storage devices to store everything, which I'm saying because one of the problems of what you'd ideally like would be like the Wayback Machine for Second Life, right? Where you could just go to any region, stand there, and then like turn back the clock or make a local copy of it or something to play in that represents it from a different point in time. But the one problem there, and I guess I can say this as our CTO more effectively than I suppose you could have said it as our founder, there's some considerable expense in maintaining a complete time history of the world. But I agree with the questioner. I think that it'd be nice if we could come up with better collective mechanisms for celebrating, say, old builds. I think that gets to governance, by the way. I've been thinking a lot about that, and for those who know my work with FairShare, which is a exploratory digital currency that involves a lot of community building and community structure. I think there might be ways for us to do a better job of voting on or otherwise using our community to actively decide like what things should be preserved. Because I know that if I asked, everybody here what they thought was the most important, build in the world to be, say, preserved if the folks who build it weren't able to pay for it anymore. I just think we'd have such a wide variety of answers that, even if we had a gathering like this to say, what stuff should we lock in place or bring back or whatever, I think it would probably be very fractious, at present. We just have a lot of us shouting at each other about, how to do that in a limited way. I'm just going to respond to one question. When you bring the birds and the Ators back, I just love that. I wrote the original Birds and Ators for those who have seen the Linden Lab, the Welcome to Linden Lab video from James Linden of, I think, about 2005. There was an ecosystem in Second Life at the very beginning that was really related to what my personal interest in virtual worlds was, which was kind of simulation, cellular automata, artificial life. I guess I wanted to repeat that one because I think it's important to recognize that, what I think is cool about Second Life isn't what we should build next. We should build what we all think is cool. And so, if we find out that through innovations like Lua, for example, we can do a better job of simulating artificial life or improving different aspects of Second Life, I think we should do it if it makes sense to everybody. But I personally, I must say, am a huge artificial life fan. And I also think, by the way, that AI is going to get really unusual when you have actual living things moving around in an environment. One of the projects here at our lab that I have helped on is a project, or actually a couple of different projects that are very expansive projects related to different kinds of AI systems with the goal of creating conscious living things rather than text prediction machines, which is what, as many of you probably know, we kind of have today with LLMs. So, next question, Brett.
Okay, there was just a follow-up question. I think you really answered it already about Skrill. Maybe just elaborate about Skrill and the replacement. Just clarify that, perhaps.
Just we recognize, because we've gotten a lot of good feedback, that Skrill is the only cash out mechanism for a number of people, and so we are going to look very hard at all those accounts and try to establish whether there are alternative cash out mechanisms wherever possible before we do anything with Skrill. So yeah, thanks for the concerns on there, and we will try to provide an alternative to everybody that's using it.
The next question is an interesting one. Can we get Second Life unbanned from Twitch?
So unbanning from Twitch, right? We've explored that a number of times in the past. As folks know, Twitch has a pretty high sensitivity around adult-themed content, and that, I think, has been what has driven the inability of people to broadcast on Twitch. And I do think we should continue to make the argument, and will, with Twitch, that we should be allowed on there, and potentially even, as we touched on earlier, maybe just to make changes to the accessibility of, say, much more adult-themed content in a way that maybe, works for lots of people here and also works for Twitch. We sort of touched on that earlier, and so I think we might be able to kind of do that work together. But yeah, I think that it would be great, I know, to be able to broadcast onto Twitch. The other marketing concern I have, as I touched on earlier, and we'll just keep reiterating, is I don't think that Second Life's necessarily for everybody. So we have to be thoughtful about that. And in some cases, also touching on what I said earlier, we don't want to do something that would like just bring in teenagers as well. So we have to be careful there too. Although I must say, off the top of my head, I'm not. I don't have an instant reckoning on to what extent to what the ages are of people that are using Twitch. Go ahead.
I have a question about your thoughts about educators in Second Life and maybe the future of Second Life supporting educators.
Well, I continue to believe that it's funny. When we ran into trouble with VR adoption at High Fidelity, as many folks here probably know, we did or were following along. When I sat down and I thought about, well, if you really did need to make VR work for some application for which it really can be used broadly, not just things like industrial training, right, where there is some success with VR headsets, I always go back to education as the sensible way that virtual worlds and VR devices can have a positive impact on everyone worldwide. If you could be educated in a virtual world capably, it potentially reduces the costs and greatly expands the accessibility of good education to all. So let me just say that I really believe in education and always have as a use case. I think that we have to be thoughtful about things like VR devices and communication modality and nonverbal communication and things like that in doing that. I also know, and I see some folks mentioning it here, thank you, Zinnia, Second Life's transformational for my college students. I'm glad that it is. There are certainly specific educational areas in which Second Life is and always has been very effective. So I hope we can, for example, by making changes where you're less likely as a teacher, say, to run into content that upsets you, we should be able to continue making it more accessible to more people. And just generally that theme of accessibility. I think that Second Life, through performance improvements, through specific feature changes, can be made more accessible to the people who are presently using it. So I hope we can do that. Next one, Brett.
There's a question about puppetry, which at one point was in development. I'm not myself clear on its status. I think they're asking, one, to put it on your radar and perhaps have us take a look at it again.
Yeah, so certainly. I did follow the puppetry project and in fact had made some contributions to it because, as we touched on earlier, I'm very strongly of the opinion that increases in communication bandwidth between people is just generally important in Second Life. In fact, let me say, I think that we've biased ourselves perhaps a bit more toward content creation options and not enough toward communication improvements. I think one thing I could imagine being an improvement is if we shift resources around so that we're more steadily making advances across, for example, accessibility, communication, discovery, search, in concert with the advances that we're making to things like fundamental engine capability and creative creation tools. So I think we need to be doing all of that. Yeah, the expression social tooling that I just saw Coffee write is I think an apt description of this. I think it's a good way of doing that. Specifically with respect to puppeteering, moving the avatar's body more capably has got to be in some way, one way or another, on the roadmap. Right now we're still almost always just triggering and playing back animations, although I must say my avatar's wiggling around while I'm talking is a kind of an in-betweener example of something that moves a little bit more toward the puppeteering direction. But basically, I think we need to come up with ways to move avatars in a more sophisticated fashion. And of course, were we ever to do anything in VR, we would, of course, that would be a hard requirement because, as I said earlier, the appeal of VR is seeing yourself moving, on screen for the first time in your own avatar's body. So puppeteering is a big piece of that. That said, we're not working on it right now. And I think it's one of those things where if you underinvest in it, if you only have like one person work on it on the weekends, you're just not going to get to anything that's useful to everybody here. And I think that's been one of the challenges with puppeteering for those folks here that work on things like inverse kinematics and blending and all the crazy things that go along with animations. and joint movements. It's a tough space. So I think, yes, we need to figure out how to do things like puppetry better, but we need to figure out how to redeploy our resources in a way that allows us to do it well. And I think that applies more generally to a lot of things here. There's so many things in Second Life that are fantastic and kind of 80% built, and I'd like to get them to 100%. One of the ways that I'm different now coming back in terms of how I'm working with the team and what my strategic approach is, along with reflecting on who we're really serving and not trying to serve people that we're not, helping, is to be much more hardcore, a little more Steve Jobs, if you will, about not letting us put something out until it's ready. Until we've talked to people about it, until it works really well. There's just so many cases where we've done amazing work, like PBR materials even, where we've done amazing work, but we test it, deploy it, staff it in a way that's insufficient for what we're trying to achieve. And so, I'm sorry that we've done that. And one of my intentions is to provide assistance at the top with just being more hardcore about, fixing the broken windows and really completing things before we launch them. Brett?
Okay. We have another question. This is going way back. So somebody is asking if you remember the Second Life community conventions, the physical events that were held, sort of fandom and meetups and so forth. It's been, I think, over a decade or so since the last one. I think they just want to get it on your radar, saying, hey, we'd love to bring it back.
I'd love to know how many people are interested in doing that again. Maybe in the course of figuring out how in this group, Friends of Philip, again, please join. Let's see how many people let's see how large a group I can make. Maybe in that group we could have a little deeper conversation about what a convention, what sort of convention or gathering everybody would like. So I'll take it under work, or Brett and I will, to take a look at that idea and think about it again.
A mobile question for you, although I don't know if we can say publicly. I guess let's see what you say to this, but they're asking, when will you open the mobile beta to non-premium or non-paid members?
Very soon. I think within the next, let's say within the next month, hopefully closer than that if we can. So yeah, we believe we think it's time now to get it out to everybody so that we can all try using it, as I said earlier, at least a little. I don't want you to switch your Second Life use entirely over to mobile. Please don't do that. I don't think we're ready for that yet. But I think that we have something where you could do things like visit a place you've never seen before, or exchange messages with people in a way that works pretty well. So we'll hopefully get that out pretty soon. Thank you.
We have a comment and a question. Somebody says, when I speak with real life friends and family about working in Second Life, there is always a shade of bad reputation for our metaverse. And I'm sad about that because it causes that people don't understand, the potential for what we have here. That Second Life allows your creativity to fly, and you can be and do anything and everything. And this is special. So then the question here is there a plan perhaps to clean the name of this amazing platform that allows others to come here and enjoy it?
I think that's a great question. I don't know if the person is here and could turn on their audio. I'm not quite sure what you mean by clean the name, or change the name. I think one thing is, yes, we could change it back to Linden World. I think that one of the tricks, let me just riff a little bit if the person's here and wants to add something to that, Brett, that'd be great. But I can riff on that a little bit and just say that Second Life is so critically dependent on what I sort of call the double exponential of friends and content. That as we get together with new friends here, we're inspired to build more content, which then brings us more new friends. And so there's this incredible double exponential. Obviously, we all really saw it in 2006 when we just grew like an absolute rocket. By the way, in terms of just being, proud of things, if you look up Google Trends, that old trend service, and you look up Second Life in there, just witness and despair, ye competitors to us. The vast success of Second Life as measured by the use of it as a term back in 2006 or so, it was quite something. But I think that I think that a lot of the appeal of Second Life depends on the fact that there are other people there and the fact that we're all kind of together in one place. And so like simple things like, rename it or, start over again with an empty grid or whatever. It's just not clear that the magic of Second Life is in its community and in the people that are already here, being able to bring more people in. But yeah, like I think these are all good things to think about as we try to better figure out who's here and how can we serve them better. I see a lot of chat there, but I'll stop there.
Okay, the next question, I'm going to kind of paraphrase from it, but they reference, I think they may have seen you in the media somewhere in your journey when you were outside of Second Life after founding it and leaving it, that you may have made some reflective comments about it, pro and con, maybe as you were sort of reflecting and processing, what Second Life meant to you as a founder. So I think the question, really the heart of it is, how are you feeling about Second Life as you come back in? And will you really be immersed to understand the communities and what they do and what's important to them and what needs to be added and changed to make the Second Life world even better?
Well, I mean, one thing to just restate the obvious, for those who know me or remember me back when I was CEO in those first 10 years, I'm working at that level now again. So I am like working on Second Life all the time. Again, if you see me in different forums, chat with me there too, or tell me where you want me to go that I haven't been, and I'll go if I can. So I'm really, really deeply involved in this. As I said at the beginning, part of that is figuring out how better to communicate with everyone and understand what we really need to do. As the CEO, I'm focusing on how and why and which technology changes we should make, and I'm also focused on more broadly strategy and product as I work with the executives here. I think that I actually let me go back, and because it's kind of related. The person who Eva, I think, who actually made that last question, added something and said that it was. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Shoot. Please go ahead.
No, I meant first, I am very sorry for my English. I'm Italian, so I'm very bad.
You sound great.
Thank you. But many people, when I say I work in Second Life, say oh, it's still alive that, but that
Right.
was only for sex stuff or other things. So you know what I mean. So
Yes.
I would like to see a new way of marketing and to show people what we do here, because it's amazing. Like, it's the best metaverse in the world. So I am very sad for this, because people don't know how amazing the avatars, the scenes are here. So
thank you. Thank you. Those are so many good thoughts. Thank you. And your voice sounds wonderful. Your English is great. It does excite me because it makes me think about how one of the cool AI things we could do is translate for everybody that wants it, kind of let everybody speak in a native language if they care to. That's one of the features that you just made me think about there that I'm really excited about. Like, I'd like to have you teach me Italian by speaking to me in Italian, but I see your captions in English. Like, how cool would that be? That's a specific thing that I think would be really fun. But when people are like, is Second Life still around? Well, one thing about that is lately, people haven't been saying that as much. Like, when I run into people, they're like, wow, Second Life. Yeah, I've heard about that. So their attitude has shifted a little bit from like, isn't that place gone or something, to like, what's the deal with that place? And I think that because it's been around for so long now, it's just kind of outlived it's outlived its critics in some ways, right? Like people are always like, well, didn't Second Life go away? And it's like, no, actually, totally not. So I think there is a sea change happening. We are going to market more, as I said earlier. So let's do it. I mean, we're going to start growing again, and we need everybody's help. But of course, we'll fund that process and provide a bunch of energy for it. But we're going to need your help with that as well. But we are going to start growing again. I also think, as I said in some of the communications about this, we're at a very exciting moment in the world. I mean, the world is really exciting and really screwed up in a lot of big ways. There's tremendous uncertainty around whether we've broken ourselves with the internet, for example. Have we ended democracy with the internet? Good God. I mean, it seems like maybe. It seems maybe some of the ways we've used technology broadly have put the very basic democratic process of working together as human beings in question. And I find that terrifying as an entrepreneur who perhaps has had some role in it. Happily, I think that our role in technology and the demonstration, or specifically what we've done with Second Life, has shown that there is a positive way. There's a much more positive way to connect with people. Second Life is an online venue, as we all know, where depolarization happens, where people tend to become friends with people they might not have liked in the real world, for example. There's all these wonderful positive aspects of Second Life that we need to focus on more, right? We need to get that perception out in front of, it's a sex game or something like that. But I think that we really do have an opportunity at this moment in history to demonstrate mechanisms for getting along together in virtual worlds and to actually provide a better home for those who wish to use virtual worlds or need to in the coming years than anybody else that's out there. So I really am excited at this moment, and I think that virtual worlds are going to be respected maybe again in a way that is super helpful to some of the broader challenges we face as a human society. So thank you for that question. Brett, I know we're probably running out of time. I'm going to hang around for a bit if folks want to chat a little more, but I know we should call an end to the official gathering, and I want to say thank you everyone so much for having me, and it's so good to be back, and I'm having so much fun, and I hope that I see you in World or in one of these variety of channels that we can talk to each other on.
Thank you, Philip. And we are capturing the questions, and remember, we will likely have follow-up community roundtables very soon. So if we didn't get your question answered, hang around with Philip, or we'll bring it up and come back for the next one. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. This is great.